Hello, my name is Ahmed Mohammed Bello and you're welcome to Creative Lounge, your #1 art show. If you've ever wanted to work in an art gallery, you most likely have considered working as a curator. Even though this career path is becoming increasingly popular in the art industry, one thing remains mysterious: what it exactly entails. On this episode of Creative Lounge, we're going to find out why. Don't go nowhere, we'll be right back shortly. You're welcome back, and it's still Creative Lounge on Trust TV. A while ago, I was talking about curating and the mystery surrounding this role. We have a curator in the house, a passionate one who has been exhibiting since 2019. She's going to, elaborate and tell us what curating is really about. Her name is Ifeoma Dagwe. You're welcome, Ifeoma.
Thank you very much, Ahmed.
I know you've been curating, curating requires having an eye, a very special eye for art, a very special skill of presenting art. But something still remains mysterious to me, and that is, how do you become a curator? What does it take to become a curator? Do you go to school, read,
Working within the Nigerian context, curating is a growing profession, so it's not as established as we would say medicine or law, So I wouldn't say there are still questions around it, but for someone who would want to enter into the curating space officially, definitely you would need some form of official certification. Right? I'm currently working on that here in Abuja, and I actually started with non-certified courses online. So that could be a start for a couple of people. But if you want to just go, jet on, you could directly go for a certified course, either physically or still online. And then while you practice, you just gradually improve on what you've begun. So yeah, that's it.
For you now, did you study curating in school? Did you study art?
No, I didn't. I studied geography and regional planning at the University of Benin, and 2019 it was a space of sharing. I mentioned to you earlier that I dove in. I could have drowned, but yeah, no, I didn't study art. I got into the curating space and I started learning how to curate, what curating is on the job. So yeah, that was my space.
So you studied something totally different from art. So what's that thing that drove you into the art industry? What's that spark? At what point in your life did you decide, okay, I want to take up curating as a career?
To be honest, when I decided I wanted curating as a career is not actually when I started. When I started, what I wanted to do was share information with art. I wanted to invite an audience. I was still in school, like I mentioned. I wanted to invite an audience. I wanted to give them something that I had learned, that I felt like everybody my age or within that sphere, everybody would go through something and would want to learn what I had learned. So art was the medium through which I thought to share it. And at that point, I didn't think to share it as an artist, that is actually painting or something. I thought to share it in collaboration with artists. So that's pretty much what I went on to do.
I've met a few curators who are friends. I wouldn't call them very professional. But there's this thing they do, a trend. Someone just someone wakes up one day and gathers artists, he just picks up a few artists, you know, gets his space, just wants to make money. But I feel there are things to consider, you know, presenting art. What are those things?
First, you have to consider what it is exactly. If you're going to be working from the perspective of the artist, that is, there's an artist that wants to curate an artwork, and then you as the curator are working with the artist. You know, you have to consider what exactly the artist is trying to portray in his works. You have to understand it. You have to know how to communicate. That's very important. You have to be empathetic, you know, to understand whether you're carrying the audience along, whether how you can actually carry the audience along. You have to know how to talk to people. You have to, oh my goodness, you need patience. You need a lot of patience, because
Patience from the artist or
from every angle, because from the curator, as a curator, you need patience, because things don't go exactly the way you might want it, because you're literally trying to curate a space, that is, organize something. You expect this and this to happen in so and so way, and definitely external factors could come through to disrupt your plans. So you have to be ready to improvise. Very important. You have to be always ready to improvise, and you have to be patient, like I mentioned. So yeah, those are a couple of things. Yeah. You seem to be very interested in patience.
Yeah, well, you have to be patient in everything you do.
True.
Now, as a curator, you serve as a medium between artists, collectors, gallery owners. You're a medium between these two. So there are artists out there who don't even know how to approach a gallery. I, as a person, have gone to galleries. If I want to exhibit my work, I want my work collected, and they'll be like, no, try next time, try next time. But you have been in that space. What do galleries really want?
The question you asked sort of gears towards, it's not a space I'm oblivious to, but it gears more towards the artist management space. Okay. So that is the mediating space. It's geared towards the artist management space, where you have sort of like the middlemen.
Because there are artists who tell you, or people tell these artists you're very good, you're skilled, you're talented, and goes to exhibit, and it's been rejected. Well, just like you said, it depends on what the gallery wants. I'm going to ask you a question now. Okay. At the point of curating, you want to organize an exhibition, you want to create an art. Do you decide what the artist paints, or the gallery decide what the artist paints? How much influence do you have, as to what the artist paints?
If I'm working with the gallery, it's a joint decision.
Okay.
So everybody agrees upon, whatever comes through. But if employed by the artist or called by the artist, saying I want to exhibit so and so at some point, and that would require a curator, then you work with what the artist has, whatever theme the artist has. So yeah, the curator sort of represents the artist's work.
Okay, so there may not be any problem if, take for example, let's use realism. I'm picking interest in realism.
I see that.
Like 3 times now. Let's say this guy paints really, black cultural artworks, and when the exhibition you're trying to organize, you want it to be toned up. Maybe you want to exhibit somewhere in Europe, and the kind of guests you're inviting to attend it, like a certain kind of art. But you want to work with the artist. Would you have him do something you want him to do, or you just, how do you do that?
Seeing that I work more freelance,
Yeah.
I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't try to twist the artist and put a circle,
Okay.
circular pod into a box. You know, I would look for who can sort out what I need, who can do what I need, and work with the person. Because, I mean, art shouldn't be. I think there's a word to use for this. Art shouldn't be so, you know, formal and directional. As much as the curator's space and the gallery's space is to bring structure, you know, to the arts industry, the artists themselves shouldn't be put into, you know, yeah, containers that just squeeze the creativity out of them. You know, because this person you mentioned now, his space where he breathes is realism and, you know, black arts that's just really dark and everything, and you want something different. So why are you bothering the guy? You know, so figure someone else out that does what you know you want and work with the person instead.
To be unruly.
I mean, I don't know about that. I don't know about unruly.
You can't cage an artist.
You shouldn't cage an artist. I'm looking into the camera saying this. You shouldn't cage an artist. But artists, I wouldn't really say they are meant to be unruly, because every individual has a responsibility to himself and to people around him to be disciplined. So I feel it doesn't matter whether the person is an artist or whichever profession the person wants to work with. Discipline is key in whatever it is you're doing. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know a lot of tension comes with your work. Pressure from here and there.
Okay.
Because it's quite intense. It takes a lot to be a curator, I'm sure. How do you deal with the tension that comes with your own personal vision as a curator and external influences?
Okay. So I would work with an exhibition from last year. Okay. The annual exhibition I started putting together, 2019. So the one for last year, I had a vision, had everything planned, and then very close to when the exhibition was supposed to hold, things fell apart. So I had to find another space, had to inform the artist about it. If I was the artist, I would have thought, is this person trying to dupe me? You know, so there's a space of trying to communicate with the artist to ensure that you're as transparent as possible but still professional. There's also the space of relating with space owners. Okay. Yeah, and there's also the space of really trying to seek for sponsorships, which is usually what runs exhibitions. Then there's the inviting people, you know. Within that, there was actually another exhibition that held towards last year. One of the major external factors that, you know, gave it a bit of a shift was the information of insecurity. Okay. So the crowd that the exhibition would have amassed, it wasn't as.
What happened?
The news of insecurity, literally, that's literally what happened. There was just news about insecurity.
Influences.
Exactly. So that was an external influence that just threw everyone off balance a little bit, but still had to run.
So how do you deal with it?
Improvise. Most of the time you improvise. Then you also have to be ready to not compromise too much. You improvise, you compromise, but not so much as to having the exhibition not be of standard, you know. So as much as you're improvising and compromising, you should also know when to cut the thread and say, no, we're going to have to postpone. That is something I dealt with in 2021. I worked in Benin with the Edo Global Art Foundation. Okay. Amazing space. Had a couple of challenges along the way, but had to postpone, and I almost had to postpone a second time actually. But it had reached a point where I had to measure it. Can we, if we go on with this, would we be okay with the result as a team? You know, and we were able to answer the question with a yes. If you can answer that question with a yes, would you be satisfied with the result? Whatever result comes out, you know what compromises you're making. So would you be satisfied with the result that comes through? If you're not, then just, I was about to say run for it, but you're not really running for it. You're more like just putting a pause on it. And it's okay to put a pause on things, you know. Everything doesn't have to be exactly as planned. You don't have to be a perfectionist. Getting into that space of not being a perfectionist. So yeah, that's it.
Curating is hard work.
Yeah, like any profession is. The artist puts a lot of work into his art. The dancer puts a lot of, the singer, the medical doctor. Let's not get that. Let's not go there. That's you know, when you try to measure art and medicine, you know, it seems like you're dealing with people's lives. But I feel like art also does that. You know, I feel like art also does that. So,
now it's dealing with people's emotions,
which is pretty much, yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Curating. There's institutional curating, there's freelance curating.
Yeah.
Which do you belong to?
I belong to the freelance.
Freelance, which is better?
I wouldn't say I've spent enough time in the institutional curating space to measure properly, you know. I don't have enough data to measure with from the institutional curating space. But for now, I'm more geared towards the freelance curating space.
So as a freelance curator, how do you make money?
That's a very good question. As a freelance curator, quite honestly, I also do a couple other things on the side. So I make money from there. So while I build as a curator, because like any other profession, it's not something you just jump into and then you're a pro, you know, you're just up there, the whole world is on your shoulders, you know, hailing you and stuff. So currently, as a freelance curator, it's not easy, okay? It's not. Quite honestly, I don't make enough.
So do you make your money from the artist or you make your money from the galleries you work with? Do you get percentage? You write contracts with the artist like, see, I'm making this percentage from you. How do you do it?
Yes, actually, you are on point with what you just said with the percentage space. Yes, if you're working with an institution as a curator, you get a salary. And sometimes, depending on, you know, the gallery owner and, you know, probably relationship that has been built, you could also get extra, you know, change from artworks sold, from each artwork sold, right? But as a freelance curator, it's usually the percentage where you have an agreement with the gallery or with the creative space you're working with, and you also have contracts signed with the artists. Very important, contract signed, because you could come back later and mention, yo, but we had this agreement, and then the person you had an agreement with is not entirely sure of what the agreement was supposed to be about. So yeah, written contracts, signed and written contracts, yes.
Very important.
Very important.
Binds. So things are evolving every day.
Yeah.
And digitization is very prevalent right now. How do you think it affects the choice of exhibitions, you know, the art industry itself?
Well, the word evolving is the perfect word to use for it. Like any other thing in life, when it's time for something to morph into a new form, there is no stopping it. So technology is here. Technology is in the art space. It's disrupting things. It's taking things out of the norm. And it's a space that every artist, every individual in the art industry should be ready to embrace, because it's not going anywhere. We're talking of AI art. We're talking of NFTs, we're talking of new forms of sculpting, just the full package. It's not going anywhere. So how does it affect, there was a way you asked the question,
yeah,
I'm not sure
choice of exhibition.
How does it affect my choice of exhibition? I'm not sure I understand.
Or let me see your style of exhibition.
My style of exhibition, what I usually, as a freelance artist, there's a particular exhibition I organize every year. So the major essence of it is, or the major focus of it is mind and society. So psychological factors, how it affects society, how art plays a role, what role does art play in, the full body of it. So technology just helps me do what I do better. Okay. Take for example, now you have an artwork and you would want maybe a different element to it. Okay. Technology can come through, you have the artwork on a screen and then you have some kind of music playing and you have it turn into a video of sorts, So like you can just twist, the space of improvisation in curating is pretty major, because you just have to do things as they come sometimes.
Yeah, so creativity comes in.
Yeah, you can be more creative with technology, You could have, I'm trying to think up different scenarios, new scenarios of what it could be like. I've watched some exhibitions online that were curated, and you had separate rooms where it wasn't only physical artworks. You had technology, you had the full room as the artwork, and that's something technology can do. You can have lighting just moving around, you could have the sound just giving someone a different kind of feel, because art is not just paintings, it's the full creative space. So technology helps us to bring that together better. I think that's the space. Wouldn't that be nice?
I want to tread that path.
Wouldn't that be nice?
You just painted a very beautiful picture. I think I've seen one of those at Discovery Museum. I saw real digital art. Yeah. They're not traditional art. You're looking at a painting and there's a voiceover.
You get technology does that for you.
Background, yeah.
It does that for you. It just expands your horizons. So I think if we can stop looking at technology as a threat and start looking at it as more of a tool to express more, to be more creative, not just as a curator but as artists as well. I think it will be really helpful for us.
Because I've seen, I was in a discussion with some friends and they were like, that digital art is taking over.
Yeah, that's a major fear for a couple of artists actually.
You are someone who sits down, you spend hours to paint, and there's someone out there who just sits on the computer and program something. There was a question that was posed at some point not too long ago, and it was gearing towards the fear of digitization of art and how it's almost taking over, and I beg to differ, because as much as there is a space for technology and AI art and all of that, there is always going to be a space for traditional arts, the traditional mediums of art, that is the painting and the sculpting with wood, because there are other kind of sculptures now that you cannot even decipher the materials. There are sculptures, oh my goodness, there is this amazing sculpture of I think that video should have gone viral somehow, of some human structures, not actual human beings, but like human structures that are all bent over, and they were sculpted with covered up with grass or something, and then there's this table on top of them, and then there's a ball that just rolls end of the human stands or bent. Right? So technology does that for you. It just gives you, more to work with.
So I really hope to explore that space more.
Where do you see the art industry in the next 10 years?
Which art industry? Nigerian art industry? African art industry? International?
Nigerian art industry.
Nigerian art industry. Quite honestly, I see Nigerian art industry thriving in the next 10 years because I keep saying this, and I hope it begins to catch on. Art is becoming, you guys. Art is becoming in Nigeria. It's a slow process, but the process is on. I think a lot of young people are getting into the art space now more than ever. A lot of young people are being more expressive, being more out there, you know, being more intentional about their art. And with the advent of social media and platforms, and you know, the opportunity to literally put yourself out there, oh my goodness, I think Nigerian art, the art industry, is going to be thriving in 10 years.
So you think in 10 years' time, the art industry over here will compare to the way it is in New York?
I mean, as we are growing, they are also growing. It's not like the international art industry will be stagnant and waiting for a Nigerian art industry to catch up. But I do think we would have reached this space of global recognition, or at least we should be getting there in 10 years, you know, because young artists are not playing these days. You know, we're just up and about our work, and there's really no stopping us. Not as much as a lot of artist representation is also from Nigeria. I mean, is also done internationally. That is, a lot of our artists that exhibit here for now, they are not as recognized, or as they're not given as much prestige down here as they are given outside the country in international spaces. I think that within the next 10 years, in the space of the restitution and this struggle for getting back what is ours, literally.
So a quick advice for, you know, people out there who want to become curators, just something quick for them.
Okay. Connect yourself to someone who can mentor you, and get yourself a certificate. Those are the two first things I think anyone should do.
So that's how much you can take today on Creative Lounge. You just heard what she said. Get yourself a certificate. I would say get schooled. You can be whatever you want to be. You want to be an artist, you want to be a curator. There's so much to do in the art industry. There's just so much to do. But get trained, get schooled, get a mentor if you have to do that. And this is what we call it a day on Creative Lounge on Trust TV. Ifeoma, it was really a pleasure having you here. I hope next time you will honor.
Thank you.
Oh, so this is what we call it a day. See you same time next week.